In 2013, haunting images of the toll illegal mining had taken on the Peruvian Amazon went viral. The video was taken by the Carnegie Airborne Observatory, a high-tech plane developed by Greg Asner from the Carnegie Institution's Department of Global Ecology. What is it about these mining activities that are so destructive from let's say from an environmental perspective first?
Gold miners not only remove the forest, they go down below the soil surface, down into what would be called the mineral soil, below the biologically active part of the soil, so deep in the soil that there isn't a science to tell us that those forests could ever recover.
The devastation exposed from above was dramatic, but it was also only part of the story. The aircraft, it's outfitted with all sorts of cool technology, but how did you use some of that technology to zero in on what was happening in terms of gold mining?
Yeah, one of the key technologies on board the plane is a laser imaging system. What it does is we fire laser beams out of the bottom of the plane. The lasers can penetrate all the way down to the forest floor. And so what we end up doing is we end up imaging the forest in very high fidelity 3D. Most of the work that had been done on this gold mining problem was using satellites that see some of the larger mines. We started finding that there was a much larger contribution from thousands of small gold mining operations that weren't known, and suddenly we had a problem to report.
The rate of gold mining expansion tripled after the 2008 global recession.
If you are on a typical Amazon river, the forest seems like it's intact all around you. But this is that same river that we just were on in the boat. Mm-hmm. When we peel the forest back, we reveal the ground, which is shown on the right here. And what we see here are gold mining operations. They're, by and large, they're set back from the river's edge so that they are being executed clandestinely.
The observatory also has a one-of-a-kind spectrometer, which can detect chemicals in the forest below, including mercury.
Our system is unique that it can measure 420 channels of light, all at the same time, from the ultraviolet to the visible part of the spectrum that we see in, to the infrared and to the shortwave infrared. Its ability to do that gives us access to a key scientific breakthrough, which is the ability to measure chemicals in the environment, because chemicals shine in different wavelengths of the spectrum.
This video from the observatory shows one of the large mining areas in the Tamopata buffer zone. Here's how the spectrometer sees that same mining area.
So where it's blood red, that's where the mercury pollution is most intense.
So it's basically like a signature of contamination.
Severe contamination. And then these blue areas are forests that have no mercury in them.
And these are also illegal mining activities, these large cleared areas.
All of this is illegal.
While the spectrometer can see mercury contamination from the sky, Luis Fernandez is studying where mercury goes on the ground.
Where else does this mercury end up?
Because the mercury is dumped into the rivers and lakes, it then gets into the food chain.
Bacteria in the water convert the mercury into something even more toxic, an organic compound called methylmercury, which is easily absorbed in the digestive system.
Mercury, unlike many other pollutants, magnifies every time it goes from one link in that food chain to the next. So a fish at the top of the food chain in a contaminated region can have mercury levels millions or tens of millions of times higher than the water in which they swim.
Where does that fish end up?
In many cases, it ends up on the dinner plate of people that live hundreds of miles downstream.
Luis Fernandez and his team have tested hair samples of more than 1,000 people throughout the Madre de Dios. More than 75% had levels above the limits considered safe by the Environmental Protection Agency, some as high as 33 times the limit. But for many miners like John Valdez, mercury doesn't seem all that dangerous.
¿Tú tocas el mercurio? Sí. ¿Cada día o cuándo? Cada día. ¿Has oído que es peligroso a tocar?
Sí, he ido, pero he conocido personas que ya trabajan años. Entonces hoy en día esas personas están envejeciendo y no les veo casi tan bien.
Over time, mercury impacts the central nervous system and can cause problems with vision, hearing, and memory. At high levels, it can cause brain damage to unborn babies.
If you talk to minors, you say, hey, this is a problem, how do they usually respond?
Usually, they don't believe us. They don't see the immediate effects because the type of exposure that you see here is a chronic one.
Coming up,